Hand-drawn effects. Artists, of course, had to recreate all these custom hand-drawn imagery to actually control and art direct the natural phenomenon and attempt to blend it into real photography. It always wasn't successful. You could see from the screenshot right here, that's from The Wizard of Oz, where the Wicked Witch of the West is trying to take the slippers off of Dorothy. The problem with hand-drawn animation incorporated into live-action footage usually results in the fact that the hand-drawn animation is far too crisp, too saturated. The colors are far too saturated. There's very little highlighting and shadowing to actually sink it into the footage. So it stands out. It's like basically it's a sheet of acetate with hand-drawn paint on top of it, so it sticks out. The most common examples are lighting, fire, smoke, and quote-unquote magic. Since this was such a labor-intensive and exacting work, teams of animators would be employed who only specialized in effects. A lot of artists or animators throughout history were not effects animators. An effect animator is a very specific type of animator. Obviously, you have to have a lot of patience, and you have to have a lot of reference, and you have to have a lot of diligence to create something that looks real and accurate. For example, you may be on a rain animation team or a smoke team, and you're basically animating smoke. Or you throw a big hand-drawn boulder into the river, and the splash has to be animated exactly like a splash would go. So if next time you're watching, say, Pinocchio, and you're noticing, all the wonderful effects animation that's on the sequence where they get swallowed by the whale, those are all separate animators that had to come in and take care of that. This was true for both freelance animators and groups of artists at the big animation houses, Disney and Warner Brothers. And to this day, effects animators are their own type of animators. They're the most CG visual effects animators or character animators are usually either working with keyframes or working with motion capture data. Effects animators aren't usually doing that. They're usually working with dynamic systems. So the tools are a little bit different. You can create effects in a lot of 3D programs like Cinema 4D, 3D Max, Maya, Houdini. Houdini is probably the big software on the block as far as a powerhouse dynamic effects software package.
In this progression of the Firebird creature from the Firebird segment of Fantasia 2000, the first part of the animation that you're seeing is a base lava level, or the main level of lava for the creature. This was animated by Ted Kiersey, who was our supervising effects animator on the piece. Once we had that action down, we wanted to add this plume of thick smoke around the Firebird, and that was added after the main animation was completed, so that the smoke could react to the Firebird creature as it's coming up out of the volcano and sort of being born, if you will. Once we had the creature and the smoke, we then started building on that and adding additional layers that were helping to define the character and also make this scene very menacing, very dangerous. So you'll see that the fire was then added on. You can see the fire on the top of the wings and the top of this creature. And then once that was in, we added in some exploding lava coming up out of the volcano. So it accented the creature as it opened its wings up. You see these explosions of lava coming up from below. And then, of course, we added the crust level. And I think the crust level is really an element that helps define the lava, but also is a very integral part of defining the lava creature itself. It really helps to bring this all together. And then once the crust was in place, we pretty much had all of our elements there, and those were all scanned into our CAP system, and we were able to add the color as well as manipulate some of those pieces of art by softening them. For instance, on the smoke, we diffused that a little bit, made it feel more like smoke. You can see in this final color version of the scene that all this hard work paid off. It's a spectacular, ominous scene that countless number of artists worked on. One of the interesting things with this particular scene, once we got it into color, one of the digital artists who was working on Dinosaur at the time happened to see that particular scene, and our supervising effects animator, Ted Kiersey, happened to be there, and they got into a conversation, and she claimed that the Firebird was done as CG, or computer-generated animation. And Ted, who actually animated the piece by hand, proceeded to tell her, no, that was done traditionally. And we had a good laugh about it, because we felt that we were really hitting our stride in blending 2D and 3D animation together, to where our colleagues were getting confused as to what was done traditionally and what had been done digitally. And I think we were very proud of that.
But eventually, the end of this hand-drawn animation comes to a close. And, thankfully so, in my opinion, because it never was fully integrated successfully. And the sad demise of what's called the Howard Anderson optical printer. The heck is the Howard Anderson optical printer? Well, it actually is one of the most important pieces of kit in the history of visual effects. The optical printer. In an age before computers, it was the center of the visual effects universe. It was how they got everything done. Almost every major effects film and most title work was done with an optical printer. And here it is right here. As you can see, it's behind glass, and it's like a museum piece, right? It's just a big piece of machinery that feeds all kinds of different sources of footage together. And what it actually does, it's, how a printer would use ink to print on paper. Well, an optical printer uses different sources of film or footage and combine them all together into one piece of footage. So it's kind of like in Photoshop, you're taking all your layers and you're flattening it down into one image. That's kind of what this does for real film. Okay. And it's behind glass. It's, it's kind of like a relic. Nobody really uses it anymore. It's a museum piece. This one that we're seeing here is actually on display at Industrial Light and Magic in San Francisco, California. ILM's Fame Anderson optical printer, and that's what that is right there, originally purchased from Paramount Pictures in 1975. It was built by Howard Anderson at Paramount for the 1956 Cecil B. DeMille film, The Ten Commandments. And the Anderson had been used on Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest. It basically fell out of popularity due to the use of the VistaVision camera format, which we've already discussed. VistaVision, we've already discussed, is a method for shooting 35 millimeter negative horizontally. Remember the 8 perf versus 4 perf? Doubling the size, increasing all the resolution. But here's the deal, and why are we looking at this? Because when George Lucas began planning his high-budget science fiction thriller Star Wars in the mid-'70s, he needed printers capable of duplicating these images time and time again with as little loss of quality as possible, and that's why they scooped up all these printers. And basically everybody was saying, what are you going to do with this stuff? And he was going to turn the world on its ear with what he was creating, and his team, of course. After the success of Star Wars, ILM acquired 5 more of these. They scoured the 4 corners to get their hands on more of these to handle the amount of work needed for such films as The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and nearly 100 others. In spite of its age, the well-built printer has remained rock steady. It's still the only printer at ILM capable of pulling down all 8 perf at one time. Other films that have gone through this printer: Indiana Jones, all the movies in that, Back to the Future trilogy, all the Star Trek films, Dragon Slayer, Poltergeist, Starman, all kinds. Let's take a look.
Do, re,
Egon!
whoa!
Ha ha.
Come on, bad boy! I'm gonna take you home to my private zoo! You got him! You got him! Make it, bring it back!
Okay. Behind you, Ray! Hold it, Ray! Take that step, bring it back!
Come on, you big leader, let's go! Yeah, Sammy!
Hey, keep pulling to the right!
Come on, man!
Okay, strap's going in!
No! Bring it!
Hold it, Ray!
Hit it!
Two in the box!
Ready to go!
We be fast and
They be slow!
wow!